So leaving people in a place of learning, tenet number 2. So this idea comes from a colleague of mine named Hugh McGill, who's a change management consultant locally. And he talks about leaving people in a place of learning rather than defensiveness. And then everything after this quote is my interpretation of that, so he's not responsible. But this came up because before he became an external consultant, he actually worked at a large pharmaceutical company internally for a number of years. Had a really great job as a change agent and a coach. And this pharmaceutical company had a manufacturing plant locally. And his job was to work with the folks on the production floor to shift the culture. And they were going from whatever they were before to process-centric, which was a big change. And so he worked with them on the culture. He worked with them on learning how to communicate and relate to each other differently, doing root cause analysis, that kind of problem solving. Actually being willing to shut off the production line if there was a problem, because part of their culture was you never shut off the production line for any reason. You just carry on. And finally, it took a year and a half. And one night, they actually shut down the production line, and he said he jumped up and down for joy because it was such a huge shift for them to actually have done that. But he said he worked a lot with the leaders on this idea of how do you leave people in a place of learning after a conversation versus a place of defensiveness. And so we're going to explore that a little bit. And he said that was the big turning point in the culture when some of the leaders started to change how they were having those interactions. So I view this as a state of being and a state of action, right? So some of this we talked, right, being open to what you hear, different views, knowing you don't have all the answers. I think sometimes being willing to let go enough to let others take risks is really hard for some people. That letting go, I'm going to let you know what, I'm trusting you. Right? I'm trusting you to just make this decision and implement it, right? That kind of thing. But we leave people more in a place of learning when it makes sense to let them take that risk. I think when leaders are vulnerable enough to share their own learning, what I really learned from this conversation with you is that we really need to do X, Y, or Z. Aren't realizing I haven't been taking this situation seriously enough, or I know you've mentioned this 3 times, but I didn't really hear you, and now I did. Being willing to share the self-reflection, I think is important. And then finally at the bottom, being open to connecting in an adult-to-adult interaction versus a sort of parent-child, manager-to-employee interaction, I think is a huge, huge shift. When we, in organizations, when I see that happen where it becomes more adult-to-adult, we really leave people in a place of learning then, right? Because we're respecting them, we're not just telling them what to do. So state of being, and then the state of action. So the good old listening, you can't get curious, we can't get away from that, right? Ask good questions. Telling the truth and holding people accountable, those are 2 of my favorites. I find it's unusual for both of those to exist simultaneously. So some leaders are great at telling the truth and being transparent, and I've seen cases then where they really have a hard time holding people accountable, like it's so uncomfortable for them. I see other leaders who don't tell the whole truth and then hold people accountable, and I think you need both of those. You need both of those operating simultaneously for it to really, really work. Trusting people's decisions and problem solving. And I think asking people what they've learned, right? Finding out what they need, and not like, so what did you learn today? I don't mean like that, not an interrogation, but sitting down in some kind of, one-on-one or casual conversation. So I'm curious, over the last 6 months, I know you've taken on this new project. What have you learned? What have been your insights, right? What's been happening for you? And come at it from that spirit of asking people what they've learned, I think is really, really huge. Anything you would add to this list in terms of leaving people in a state of learning other than defensiveness? Other actions you may already take right now, every day. So this is a communication process. So any leader, anybody can use to facilitate a better understanding of their culture, any cultural blind spots, or how any specific issues are being perceived. And I created this for an organization, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, because it came up, they wanted some quick and easy ways to get more information about their culture. And so I came up with this, and one of the reasons, and they really got behind this, they said, we assume we perceive our culture accurately, but we realize that sometimes we don't. Because we can't see everything. It's impossible to perceive every culture you're in 100% accurately. You're going to get a lot of it right, but everyone's going to have some blind spot in your head, right? Something you just can't see, maybe because of your vantage point, right, in the organization. So it's helpful to ask, what do I need to see that maybe I'm not seeing, right? And to get that information. So this is the exercise, and then we'll do a modified version of this today, but I wanted to show you the exercise here. But if you decided to do something like this, you would invite individuals from different areas of your organization, different levels, right? If anybody wanted to do this, get feedback from lots of different, like any 360, right? Feedback from lots of different sources. Of course, explain the purpose of the conversation, what information will be used to create the psychological safety, if it's confidential, if it's not, right? Put all those ground rules in place. And then what the other organization did is just sat down in individual conversations with people, welcome their candid feedback. These are examples of some questions. You could, of course, change them, not use them, make them more specific or whatever. But the questions they asked were things like, how does our culture shine? Because they were tired of asking, what are the strengths of our culture, right? So came up with different words. How does our culture shine? How does our culture hold us back? Based on the premise that culture is almost always moving us forward and holding us back at the same time. What am I not seeing about our culture or myself that I should be? What is it that you'd really like to tell me here, right? You think there's something we often will think that about a leader, right? I feel like he or she's just not seeing this, and I wish they did. That's the spirit of it, right? Is feedback. And then how can we better align our culture with our direction? So those are the questions they used. Of course, these can be totally changed or modified. And then what I was thinking for today, actually before I get to today, I wanted to share one idea. So when people are giving feedback, I've noticed that there are really 3 levels of what I call cultural trust building. So the first is listening to what you hear, which we've already talked about today. The second is acknowledging people's truths, and by truth, it's truth with a lowercase t. It's not the truth, but it's my truth, your truth, right? How we are experiencing something, right, is our truth. That's what I mean by truth in this case. And then acting on those truths. And this came out of some work I was actually doing last fall for an organization, and I was part of a larger consulting project. I did one piece of it. And something that came up in this situation was the organization. I had done work with them before, and they had been amazing, right? And something had changed with some of the people there and the politics that was making it much harder for me to do my job well. And so I was trying to pick up the slack. I was talking to people. I was trying to remedy the situation, and it was hurting what I was trying to do and the people I was trying to help. So I finally went to my contact and said, this is really what Kathy, this is what I'm experiencing. And she heard me, and she said, she listened to what she heard. She did a great job with that. She acknowledged it. She said, you're absolutely right. She said, I own it. I know I've had these things going on. I haven't been